Welcome back to The Person Everyone Needs. I am Webb Hockard, and today we are going to be looking at the last chapter of Jonathan's story. We're going to talk about how Jonathan shows up. He shows up on behalf of David and helps begin to build him into the great man that David will become. We don't get David without Jonathan. Just a reminder, like, you are investing in others, and it's a good thing. It's worthwhile because what we are building in others is what will last beyond us. And so that's very important for our legacy. Jonathan's life in his later years takes no downturn in velocity. In the same dramatic way that he is thrust upon the stage of leadership over the people of God, his life will be cut short, but still on full display in the eyes of the nation of Israel. And just like he took to his position as prince with great grace and ability, he will spend every day pouring out his life to those around him. The man who became prince overnight and the warrior who decimated his greatest rival in a day's battle looks to achieve his greatest feat of his whole life, his legacy. Identity comes from realizing who has made you. Destiny is proving what you're made of. Legacy is not what you leave behind, but who you leave behind. Every single one of us leaves a wake behind us. Whose life is being altered by your influence? The reason Jonathan's story is nearly perfect is that he's obscure enough that you don't find out many of his faults, yet he's so pertinent to one of the greatest men in history that he seems legendary. The day Jonathan really meets David is the last day that David was a boy. If you want to talk about people who go from zero to hero, that's the story of David. David was a young and handsome boy who spent his days tending sheep outside Bethlehem. He was an intelligent, peculiar kid. He learned how to keep his sheep safe with a sling. He wrestled a bear and a lion to their death. He also learned to play a musical instrument. He was a songwriter, leader, assassin, inventor. These were all roles he would eventually play in his life. That journey begins when Samuel anoints his head as the next king of Israel. David, in the eyes of God, would take the place mapped out for Jonathan. And how does Jonathan react? The head of Goliath is gripped in the small hands of David. He lifts the giant's skull overhead, and the entire army erupts with passionate pursuit of the stunned enemy. Another great victory brought to pass by the passion of a younger warrior. Saul, again, is not the man of courage Israel desperately needs. Jonathan's soul is knit to David's at that moment. Jonathan removes his armor and gives it to David. His robe, his weapons, and his belt are stripped and given to David. Jonathan makes a covenant with David right there. We will be brothers forever. This friendship will not be like every other. Covenant friendships are powerful. If you get the chance to have such a relationship, recognize its beauty and be grateful. What signifies that type of relationship? Someone who is always for you, even if it's against themselves or even what you may want. Someone who pushes you to the best version of yourself. Jonathan loved David more than himself, and that love will be tested. Just as David is getting acclimated to all this new fame in the palace, King Saul is threatened by David's success and begins to find a way to get rid of him. He is so tormented by his own cowardice and disobedience that the servant believes he sees demonic spirits. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him. The Lord had departed from Saul, which had made him paranoid and angry. While David played his lyre in an attempt to help comfort the king, Saul grabbed a spear and threw it at David. Now David ducks and gets away. Moments later, another spear is thrown his way. David escapes twice from deadly spears thrown at him from a sulking king. King Saul then decides to get rid of David another way and sends him into battle. But the hand of God was so mighty with David that in every battle he entered, he succeeded. This makes Saul even angrier. A part of winning against Goliath was that David won the hand of one of Saul's daughters. However, Saul is not interested in giving one of his daughters to the man he views as his enemy. He gives one of his daughters in marriage and finds that his next daughter in line, Michal, loves David. Saul sees that this is an opportunity to get into David's mind, so he offers Michal to David and asks for a second bride price of 100 dead Philistines. It's even weirder than that. He asks for their foreskins. Reading the Bible is interesting. So Saul tries to kill David with a spear in battle on the front lines by sending him to the Philistines to retrieve the bride price of 100. Yeah, you remember what I said. And if all of that doesn't work, then at least he will have his daughter in David's house, and surely he can work that to his advantage. David returns from the Philistines with 200 circumcisions. He marries Michal, increases his collateral in the eyes of Israel, and daily puts fear in the Philistine nation. Saul kept plotting to kill David. Jonathan, however, knew David's potential destiny. He loved David and confronted his father, the king, about his unacceptable hatred of a man who had risked his own life for his nation. Saul relented because of Jonathan's persuasion. Jonathan spent his time honoring and helping a young man instead of preserving his place as the next ruler. Wars came, David fights, Israel wins. Saul is tormented again. David comes to serve Saul, and again a spear is thrown at his head. Saul intended to pin him to the wall. David narrowly escapes to his home. Saul sends guards to quarantine him in hopes of killing him the next day. But Michal helps him escape. Saul is so angry with his daughter that he rebukes her. She responds that David threatened her, further kindling his anger. David is now on the run. He runs straight to Samuel to say, you got me in this mess by anointing me. What are you going to do? So Samuel provides a miraculous hedge of protection through the power of God there. Yet David still decides to go back home and consult with Jonathan. The last scene of David and Jonathan's brotherhood is seen here. Their short friendship blossomed into a covenantal, lifelong relationship, and then they become brothers-in-law, actually family. Then the jealous father-in-law spends his days trying to kill this man. Jonathan meets with David and reassures him that he will speak with his father and fix everything. He tells David to hide, and when he has found out whether or not he is safe, he will come to the field and shoot arrows. When his boy goes to retrieve them, he will shout for him to come closer if it is safe, or go further if it is not. Before confronting Saul again, Jonathan makes a second covenant. The first was a covenant with David alone. The second, a covenant with the lineage of David, declares that their descendants will be connected. This covenant was unnecessary and so sacrificial for Jonathan, yet it is David who will fulfill its expectations. Jonathan swears his love for David again. He loved him like his own soul. He would find out quickly that his father had every intention of killing David. He so hated David that he slandered his own wife in his rage, calling Jonathan's mother a perverse and rebellious woman. Jonathan attempts to understand why his father is so unreasonable and is met with a tossed spear. Saul attempts to murder his own son, the heir to his throne, the very throne that was in need of protection from David. Without an heir, why kill David? Saul has completely lost it. His mind, his kingdom, his family. And it won't be much longer for his whole life. Jonathan goes out to the field and tells the boy to retrieve the arrows. He exclaims, "Is not the arrow beyond you? Hurry, be quick, do not stay." The boy, a little confused, grabs the arrows, runs to Jonathan. Jonathan instructs him to head back into town. He leaves, and David runs to his best friend, sobbing. He knows this is goodbye. He knows that nothing will ever be the same. His days in Saul's palace are over. His days as the great general of the Israelite armies are over. They're done. His days with Jonathan are finished. These two men hold one another. Jonathan finally speaks, "Go in peace. Everything we have sworn to one another still stands. May God see to it that our offspring be together forever." David wipes his tears and runs into the wilderness. David was taught how to be a prince by Jonathan. He saw what a leader looked like. He saw what honor looks like in Jonathan. Jonathan lived loyal. He lived out loyalty. He remained loyal to the king and to his friend. Jonathan was the first example of living faithfully to God daily that David had ever seen. Prince, warrior, friend, Jonathan set the stage for David to succeed in every way. But there was one more lesson he would get to teach. And I look forward to talking about that one more lesson next week. I'm going to tell you, there's somebody in your life that needs you to be an encourager to them, and you might be their Jonathan who stands in the gap and builds them up. We'll see you next week on The Person That Everyone Needs.